to the time when there is no more nights, when your people can come out of hiding, when your people can't stop all the fighting, when peace is established across the nation, and we bow before you in adoration at the New Jerusalem, when the war is done, when the world is new and the tribes are one. The New Jerusalem, that's where we'll be, just worshiping the King of Kings, the God of all. We look forward to the time when darkness is overcome by light, when evil is cast out from before you, as we lift up our hands just to praise you, as we stand face to face with Yeshua Messiah. We'll scream and we'll shout out, hallelujah, at the New Jerusalem, when the war is done, when the world is new and the tribes are one. The New Jerusalem, that's where we'll be, just worshiping the King of Kings, the God of all, the God of all. Come and deliver us, come and deliver us, come and deliver us, your people, your people. Come and deliver us, come and deliver us, come and deliver us, your people, your people. Come and deliver us, come and deliver us, come and deliver us, your people, your people. Come and deliver us, come and deliver us, come and deliver us, your people, to the New Jerusalem, when the war is done, when the world is new and the tribes are one. The New Jerusalem, that's where we'll be, just worshiping the King of Kings, the God of all, the God of all.
Shalom and welcome to the City Gate Messianic Bible Study. being brought to you by Bethlehem Messianic Congregation, a place where Jew and Gentile worship Yeshua the Messiah as one people. Follow the Word of God from Genesis to Revelation. Come out any Shabbat, that's Saturday, at 11. Well, you want to get there a little bit earlier, but to come in, say hello. Come out and join us. And join us for worship, the news, and the Word. The Word. All right, let's begin with a word of prayer. And we're going to begin our study on Ruth. Thank you, Lord, for your blessings today. Thank you for this opportunity to share this wonderful word. Let me be nothing. You be everything. Speak to your sheep, Yeshua, for I am nothing, and you are all things. In your name, Yeshua, and everybody said, Amen. Let's go get a blessing. Turn to the book of Ruth, chapter 4. This is the City Gate Messianic Bible Study, being brought to you by Bethlehem Messianic Congregation, a place where Jew and Gentile worship Yeshua the Messiah as one people. Check out our website at bgmctv.org. That's bgmctv.org. If you've missed any part of our study, this is part number 14. So go to our website, see up here, bgmctv.org, and watch the other parts. If you would like a copy of the PowerPoint, it's almost 200 slides already. Send an email to info@bethlehem.org. That's info@bethlehem.org. And check out our other studies on our website under education. And let's go to chapter 4. We're gonna be looking at the Kinsman Redeemer tonight. We're going to get to that very special part. And let's read chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. Meanwhile, Boaz had gone up to the gate and had sat down there when the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken passed by. Such and such, he said, come over and sit down. So he came over and sat down. He took 10 of the city leaders and said, sit down here. And they sat down. Then he said to the redeeming kinsman, the parcel of land which used to belong to our relative Elimelech is being offered for sale by Naomi, who has returned from the plain of Moab. I thought I should tell you about it and say, buy it in the presence of the people sitting here and in the presence of the leaders of my people. If you want to redeem it, redeem it. But if it's not to be redeemed, then tell me so that I can know, because there is no one else in line to redeem it. And I'm after you, he said. I'm after you, he said. I want to redeem it. All right, so we're getting to the part. I'm very sorry to our Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters. I don't have a translator tonight. I can understand Spanish, but I can't teach and go back and forth. And it's so... Please accept my apologies. All right, so we're going to be looking closer now at verse 4. This is one of the key verses of, it's the crux of our study for the book of Ruth. But what it is it's actually extremely important for the entire Bible, for salvation. So let's go read. If you had to put a level of importance on every verse in the Bible, this verse would be one of the top ones, if not the top, when dealing with redemption. So let's look at verse 4. And if you haven't underlined it in your Bible, I think you should. Ruth 4, verse 4. I thought I should tell you about it and say, abide in the presence of the people sitting here and in the presence of the leaders of my people. If you want to redeem it, redeem it. But if it is not to be redeemed, then tell me so that I can know. Because there is no one else in line to redeem it. And I'm after you. He said, I want to redeem it. Okay, so what we're looking at here is something very important. Boaz says, I'm next in line. And we've been talking about that, throughout this study. About who is the kinsman redeemer and who is closer than Boaz. If this is a foreshadow of Mashiach, who is closer than Yeshua? So, look at verse 4 again. I thought I should tell you about it and say, abide in the presence of the people, sitting here and in the presence of the leaders of my people. If you want to redeem it, redeem it. But if it's not to be redeemed, then tell me so that I can know, because there's no one else in line to redeem it. And I'm after you. He said, that's the Redeemer. I want to redeem it. Or it could be, Boaz, but all right. So what we're seeing here, and this is important, Boaz is pressing the issue. He wants this to be resolved today. Is he going to redeem Ruth? Does he love Ruth? Is he going to marry Ruth? Is this the Redeemer who's closer? Does he love Ruth? Doesn't even know Ruth. Okay? So this is very important. Because is Yeshua our Redeemer? Yes. But then if Yeshua is our Redeemer, who would be closer to us than Yeshua? Because Yeshua fits the the criteria, right? He is a Hebrew. He's not a Catholic. He's not a Christian. He's a Jew, a Hebrew. Okay? So he says, I'm next in line. So that's something that we have to understand. That. So if Yeshua is a Redeemer, who would be next in line? Who precedes Boaz? If Yeshua is our Redeemer, who can redeem us besides Yeshua? Okay, so write that for your notes. It's very important. All right, and he says in verse 4, I'm next in line. So let's think about that for a second. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks, and we're going to get to it today. Okay? So who could that be? Okay, the Redeemer who is closer than Boaz agrees to buy the property. Okay? So this guy agrees to buy the property. So, we've gone over for the last couple of weeks. We're not going to go back. I'm just going to touch on it for a second. The order of succession. Okay? The first person would be a brother of Elimelech, a brother of Machlon Chilion. Okay? Well, those three men are dead. Those three men are dead. So, then we go to the father's brother, Elimelech's brothers. And, this was ancient Israel. Unlike today, in most families have one, two, but in ancient Israel's time, families were much larger. So, did Elimelech have a brother? That would be the uncle of Machlon and Chilion, the brother to Elimelech. Right? So that's what we need to look at, because who is this guy? And the reason we're looking at this and why it's important for us is who is closer to us than Yeshua. Okay? So the Redeemer who's closer than Boaz agrees to buy the property. Okay? And this is what he's doing, is redeeming the land. So hold your place in Ruth 4 and go back to Shemot, Exodus 6, verse 6. Shemot, Exodus 6, verse 6. And if you're liking this study, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to our pages, or so that anytime we put the video up, you'll get a notification. On Vimeo, rumble.com/BGMctv, and subscribe to our page. Hit the thumbs up. youtube.com/BGMctv. All right, so we're in Exodus, Shemot 6:6. Therefore say to the people of Israel, I am Jehovah. I will free you from the forced labor of the Egyptians, rescue you from their oppression, and redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. So, we're reading this, and this is a very interesting passage, because Jehovah, the Eternal One, says, I'm going to redeem you. So, is this correct? Is this the same? Redeeming the nation, redeeming the people. Is this the same as what Boaz is doing? Is Jehovah closer to us than God the Father? Than Boaz? Or does the Redeemer have to be? Does the Redeemer have to be a person? Boaz, he's talking to a person. All right, so let's see what we got here. Let's go back to Ruth 4, verse 4. I thought I should tell you about it and say, by it in the presence of the people sitting here, and in the presence of the leaders of my people. If you want to redeem it, redeem it. But if not to be redeemed, then tell me so that I can know, because there is no one else in line to redeem it. And I'm after you. He said, I want to redeem it. So Boaz says he wants to redeem it. And the man is going to say he wants to redeem it. So what Boaz is doing here, he's talking to the nearer kinsman in front of the city council. Right? He has to do things according to Jehovah's word. He has to follow the law. And, for us to be redeemed by Messiah Yeshua, our Messiah, had to do the same thing. Yeshua has to follow his Father's law. For without it, we are nothing. Without, if you say the law is done, well, you're toilet tissue. You don't understand what's going on. We always need to follow God's law. Because Malachi 3:6 says Jehovah says he doesn't change. The Father doesn't change. Yeshua says in Matthew 5:18 that not one jot or tittle will be lost from the law till heaven and earth pass away. Hebrews 13, it says Yeshua is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So we got to follow the law to find out why Yeshua did what he did and why Boaz is doing what he's doing. Because without this, if you don't get redeemed, as we saw in Exodus 6:6, see here, Jehovah said, I'm going to redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. If you don't get redeemed, you stay as a slave to the devil. I don't think anybody wants to be a slave to the devil. All right, so we go back to this. Let me bring that back up. Go here. All right, so Boaz is, this must be done. This is scriptural. This has to be done in front of witnesses. This has to be done in front of a minimum 10 for this type of thing to be legal in God's word. And it has to be done in, at the city gate where many other people can watch it and testify of what occurs. Hey, so Boaz is forcing the issue. He's saying, If you want to redeem it now. If not, I'm going to redeem it. And it has to be done right now in front of these leaders. So Boaz is, he's going to push it very hard. Now, let's think about that for a minute. Did Yeshua our Messiah do this? So it's something we need to look at. That Boaz is going to push the leader. He's going to say he wants it done now. And so he has this discussion in front of men who fear God, men who follow the law. And he's telling the man he called such and such, in verse number 1, he's saying, you're the closer redeemer, but if you don't make a decision today, I'm gonna take the land in Ruth. Okay, so, but what he starts out with is something very interesting. Look at this very interesting thought. He uses business language. He uses business language. That seems a little strange, but let's look at it. Let's look at it for a second. Let's look at the business language that he uses, because it's very cut and dry. There's no emotion. He's going to use business language. Because what he's doing is actually a business deal. I know many people in Western culture don't understand this, the business deal, but he's buying property. He's buying the land, and he's buying Ruth. So look at this. Well, let me explain that in a second. In our culture, whatever that culture is anymore, in American culture, if you told a woman, my property, she, in many regards, would not go along with that. Okay? She would not go along with that. Because she would say, I'm not property. But biblically, the man is the head of the house. And and because he's the head of the house, he owns everything in that house. If he's a godly man. And, even if he's not a godly man, we have Nabal, Abigail's husband, until he died. And then she became David's wife. Okay? But Abigail could not leave her husband, because in God's understanding, and that goes back to the Exodus 6:6, the Shemot 6:6, he owns us. He redeemed us. The first commandment. I'm the God of you. I took you out of Mitzrayim. Fifth commandment. Honor your father and mother. When you go into the Hebrew, it's not just honor your mother and father, your father and mother. They own you. It says, Honor your father and honor the father and mother of you. They own you. Okay, so back to this. All right, verse 4. I thought I should tell you about it and say by it in the presence of the people, sitting here and in the presence of the leaders of my people. If you want to redeem it, redeem it. But if it's not to be redeemed, then tell me so that I can know, because there is no one else in line to redeem it. I'm after you, he said. I want to redeem it. Okay, so he's saying redeem it, fulfill the contract today, and then you're gonna obtain Ruth, and well, he's not putting Ruth forward yet. He's really pointing to the land, and we'll see something in a minute. Okay, so he's using transitional language. Buy it. She's selling it. It's a deal. It's right. So there's only one thing of understanding of buying it. There's no other business reference. Okay, so he himself wants to redeem it. Boaz is also saying, if you don't want it, I want it. So what he's doing is forcing the issue for this blessing. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Right, so this person is called, the other person, ahead of Boaz is called the nearer redeemer. Nearer redeemer. You see that over here, beginning of this paragraph. And the nearer redeemer knew what was going on. Okay? And he understood the implications that if he doesn't do this right now, today, it's gone. Okay? The near redeemer, maybe didn't know all about Ruth, but he's going to need to understand that. Okay? And, would this guy invest in that land that Elimelech had? Okay? Did he have the resources to buy that land? This is a lot to think about. And this guy wasn't thinking about it all. And Boaz has been, thinking about it since he met Ruth. And he thought she was beautiful. Okay? So what's going on here is, does he have the resources to, one, buy the land, two, take Ruth on as a wife, three, raise up children that are his, but they're not his. Because the children are going to be part of this property that he's buying. So he's got to think of all this. And do I have the resources? Can I take another wife? Do I have the resources to take care of that? I mean, many men, think about the sexual part, and they're like, yeah, this is good. But they don't think of the responsibility. And, Boaz has thought of the responsibility. But this man may not have. Okay? Does he have the funding to buy the land, take on another wife, and to have more children? Or any children. We don't know if this guy is married. Okay? And like I said, the children, the first child would be the heir to the property. It would not be this person such and such. Okay? That's all these things we have to consider. And Yeshua, our Messiah, had to consider this. Was he willing to give up his throne? He calls himself the bridegroom. So Ruth 4 teaches us a lot about redemption that we don't always remember. Look at this yellow part down here at the bottom. Redemption has a cost. Write that for your notes. Redemption has a big cost. Okay? It has an extremely big cost. And that's one of the things that I find so reprehensible about those that say we don't have to follow the Father's laws. Because Yeshua, our Messiah, followed those laws so that he could redeem us. Because it says salvation comes from the Jews. It cost him a tremendous amount. It cost him his life. Okay? So we ought to remember that we've been redeemed by our kinsman redeemer. And, this other redeemer besides Boaz, he wants to redeem the land, the object, but he doesn't want to redeem the soul. He is willing to buy the land that we're going to get to in a moment, but he did not want to redeem Ruth. Something very important. That's why Yeshua says he's our bridegroom. He's come to redeem the earth and all that are on it. Okay, so let's read verse 4 again. If you have any questions or comments, just speak up. And if you're online, send us an email. Verse 4. I thought I should tell you about it and say, buy it in the presence of the people sitting here, and in the presence of the leaders of my people. If you want to redeem it, redeem it. But if it's not to be redeemed, then tell me so that I can know, because there is no one else in line to redeem it. And I'm after you, he said. I want to redeem it. Okay? So, when you're buying the land, you're buying everything that's along with it. It's not. You're not just buying the dirt. You're buying the stuff that's under the dirt. You're buying the air above the dirt. Okay, so the other redeemer, the nearer kinsman, he's not going to exercise his right of redemption. Okay? Now, once again, we go back to the transitional language. That language is it's very cut and dry. Buy it, redeem it. It has no emotion. It was just, this is what you need to do. Now, we've read the other chapters, and we know that Boaz had great affection for Ruth. He had great affection and respect for what she did. Okay, but he's, as some people would say, he's being a good poker player here. He's not letting on what he's doing. Okay, so that's something very important. Okay, The nearer kinsman did not want Ruth. And, as I said, we don't really have a lot of information about that nearer kinsman. It's something, we don't know if he's got a wife, children, sick parents. We don't know anything about this guy except that he's closer than Boaz by one step. So we look at it, we've looked at it in the other studies. The eldest brother would have the right of redemption first. The eldest brother would have the right of redemption first. When we move to the next layer, the brother of the father, the eldest brother, would have that right of redemption. And down the line to the youngest brother. So, what is going on here in verse number 4 is what Yeshua spoke about in Luke 14, verse 28. Yeshua says in that passage, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Count the cost. So you want to redeem something, you must count the cost. Think of what Yeshua thought about for each one of us. And, that's what I find so offensive, that the Christians, and sadly, many Messianics say, we don't have to follow the law anymore. It's so sad because Yeshua counted the cost before he left heaven and his throne. And that's what he was saying in Luke 14, verse 28. Suppose when he wants to build a tower. So this nearer kinsman is counting the cost. I have enough money to buy the land. If I buy Ruth, get married with her, I'm not gonna have enough money. And like I said, we don't know if he's married or not, and we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, next slide. All right. Now, other topics that we need to consider, because we've looked at the nearer kinsman. Who is this unnamed servant? Now, there's 3 topics we need to look at here. The nearer kinsman, the unnamed servant, and the law of the Levirate marriage. The nearer kinsman, I said, he wants to redeem the land, but not the people. Would our Father in heaven want to redeem the land, but not the people? No. He made all of us. He loves us. He said that we don't want to follow his law. So who is this Redeemer closer than Boaz? Some people say it's the Father in heaven, Jehovah. Then that would not fit the Father's personality. The Father, would he want to just redeem the earth but not the people? Doesn't sound like the Father. Is this Yeshua before he comes to earth as a man, as a baby? Okay, and another thing we need to think, if you think it's the Father, remember what we read in the Levirate marriage, the person not redeeming, not doing what they're supposed to do as the next in line, gets their shoe pulled off, and the woman spits in the man's face, and that person gets a real bad reputation. So this could not be the Father. Because you're not going to spit in the Father's face. You're not going to destroy his reputation. And you're certainly not going to rip the sandal off the Father's foot. Okay? So, now what's the Levirate marriage? Because we need to look at that, because without it, you don't understand what I just said. Hey, you'll see parts of the Levirate marriage in Luke 4, verse 7 through 11. Just go there a moment. Go to go to Ruth 4, not Luke 4. Ruth 4, verse 7 through 11. Ruth 4, verse 7 through 11. Okay, let's read it. Let me bring it up on the screen for you. Sword. All right. Let me do this so it's easier to see it. All right, and put it up there for you to see. All right. Ruth 4, 7 through 11, the highlighted sections. It states, in the past, this is what was done in Israel to validate all transactions involving redemption and exchange. A man took off his shoe and gave it to the other party. This was a form of attestation in Israel. So the Redeemer said to Boaz, buy it for yourself. He took off his shoe. Boaz addressed the leaders and all the people, you are witnesses today that I am purchasing from Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Kilion and Mechlon. I am also acquiring as my wife, Ruth, the woman from Moab, the wife of Mechlon, in order to raise up in the name of the deceased an heir for his property, so that in the name of the deceased will not be cut off from the kinsman and from the gate of this place. You are witnesses today. All the people of the gate and the leaders said, we are witnesses. May Jehovah make the woman who has come into your house, like Rachel and Leah, who between them built up the house of Israel, do worthy deeds in Ephrat, become renowned in Bethlehem. Okay. So that's a portion of the Levirate marriage. Hey, now, you got to go back to Deuteronomy 25 to get the spitting, bad reputation. Okay, so what we have here in the Levirate marriage, we have number one. During this section that we just read in Ruth, Ruth was not there. Okay? So we're having some of the Levirate marriage, but not all of it. Second, the kinsman took off his shoe and gave it to Boaz instead of Ruth removing the shoe of the nearer kinsman. Third, Ruth did not spit in the face of the nearer kinsman. Okay? And fourth, Boaz purchased the right of redemption. Okay? So, what we looked at last week is Devarim 25, where those things occur. All right? So, now we've got those four things. Ruth was not present to say that near Redeemer. You didn't do what you're, rip your shoe off and spit in your face. Ruth had to say yes to this. Well, she's part of the property, like I said, it's something difficult for Westerners to understand and people that don't follow the Bible. That we're all God's property. But according to Numbers, Bamidbar 30, God, the man who has man parts, the wife, the children, that order. So Ruth was not there, so that didn't fit the total criteria of a Levirate marriage. What we read there, the kinsman redeemer took his own shoe off. It wasn't pulled off of him. Third, Ruth was not there. She didn't pull his shoe off, and she didn't spit in his face. And finally, fourth, Boaz purchased the right of redemption. So we have a framework of the law of the Levirate marriage, but some of the things are not there because it's going amicable, but the nearer redeemer doesn't want to redeem it. Okay, so let's go on to verse 5 through 8 now. Then Boaz said, "The same day you buy the field from Naomi, you must also buy Ruth, the woman from Moab." Let me read that again. Then Boaz said, "The same day you buy the field from Naomi, you must also buy Ruth, the woman from Moab, the wife of the deceased son, in order to raise up in the name of the deceased an heir for his property." The Redeemer said, "Then I can't redeem it for myself because I might put my own inheritance at risk. You take my right of redemption on yourself because I can't redeem it." In the past, this is what was done in Israel to validate all transactions involving redemption and exchange. A man took off his shoe and gave it to the other party. This was the form of attestation in Israel. So the Redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself," and took off his shoe. Okay, so the law is being followed. Okay, so now let's go back up to verse number 5. Then Boaz said, "The same day you buy the field from Naomi, you must also buy Ruth, the woman from Moab, the wife of the deceased son, in order to raise up in the name of the deceased an heir for his property. Okay, this is very important because Boaz is informing the redeemer, the nearer kinsman redeemer. There's two parts to this, the land and the person. He's saying you also have to buy it from Naomi, and Boaz is also quoting Torah again, that you're going to have to marry Ruth and raise up an heir to that property. So in one sense it's going to be yours, but in another sense it's going to be the heir's property. So that's something very interesting. And so who would it be? Okay. Now, raising up an heir, we've gone over this in the past studies, but the scriptural references are Bereshit, Genesis 38, verse 8, and Deuteronomy, chapter 25, verse 5 and 6. Okay, we also see that Naomi is selling her property. She can't take care of it. She's got no sons, and so Naomi agreed to take Ruth with her back to Bethlehem, back to the house of bread. And Naomi is now responsible for Ruth as a mother is to a daughter. So she's got to provide for her daughter. Now the land is owned by Naomi according to Torah. Okay? You know, the wife doesn't lose the land because her husband has passed. She is selling it, okay? Because she can't take care of it. And there's, taxes on the land. There's all, can the person take care of that property? You got to take care of what you own. Now, the stipulation of the contract, Boaz states it in verse 5. Then Boaz said to the nearer kinsman, the same day you buy the field from Naomi, you must also buy Ruth, the woman from Moab, the wife of the deceased son. Okay, so the Redeemer is singing, the kinsman Redeemer is singing, I might have enough money for her to buy the land. Or maybe he doesn't, We're not told. But what he is being told in front of all the leaders, this contract, that you got to buy two things. So look at verse 5 one more time. From Naomi, you must also buy Ruth, the woman from Moab, the wife of the deceased son, in order to raise up in the name of the deceased an heir for his property. So you got to do two things. So Boaz is laying out the contract for this guy in front of leadership. Okay, now, this is according, and we've read it before and I mentioned it, but according to Deuteronomy 25, verse 5 and 6. Now, Naomi is selling it because the widow is not kicked off the land because her husband or her sons died, but she has to take care of the land. And God makes ways for everybody to do their job. If Naomi could take care of the land, she didn't have to sell it. She's wanting to sell it. Number 2, the land is covenanted to that particular family in the land of Israel. Elimelech's line is covenanted for that parcel of land. So Naomi would have to do something eventually to get an heir for that particular piece of property. Okay? So, but God protects them. He has laws setting up these things so that we can follow God's order. That's the whole key here, people. You want to follow God's order. You know, God doesn't change. He doesn't say one thing one day and change his mind the next. His law is the same always and forever. Okay? Now, the child born to that kinsman redeemer has to be close in bloodline to redeem that particular land. The genetics have to be in order, because that particular parcel of land is for that family and that family alone. And that's what the church really doesn't understand when they talk about replacement theology. It doesn't fit any of this criteria. Now we go to the next part, verse number 6. The Redeemer said, then I can't redeem it for myself, because I might put my own inheritance at risk. You take the right of redemption on yourself, because I can't redeem it. Now he's saying this in front of the 10 leaders. So this is going to be binding. Now, we don't know who this Redeemer is. I searched and searched and searched. And I looked at the word Redeemer. You know, I want to, because, you know, who is this person? He's saying here, but we don't have any other information except what he tells us here. Why is his own inheritance at risk? And he gives it over to Boaz. Now, Boaz is a wealthy older man. Now, what we have here is one of the mystery of all the ages. Nobody knows for sure who this nearer kinsman is. Why does he put his own inheritance at risk? So I said, how would a Hebrew put his own inheritance at risk? Now, in that verse, in verse number 6, he uses the word redeem. I can't redeem it. So the word H5159, Nakala, means, you know, for the redeeming, number 1, possession, property, inheritance, heritage. Number 2, property. Number 3, portion, share. Number 4, inheritance, portion. Now, I did research, and there's only 2 words for redeem that are used in Torah. It's H5159 that we just read, and H5157. So let's see what the other one is. We looked at 5159. So 5157 is not, 5159 was Nakalah, and 5157 is Nakal. It means to get as a possession, acquire, inherit, possess. Number 2, to take possession, inherit. Number 3, to divide the land for a possession. Number 4, this is another 3, to acquire testimonies. And this will be number 5, to divide for a possession. Okay, so we have slight variances of the word. Now, when is H5159 used? And when is H5157 used? Okay, let's see here. Let's look at the one reference for 5157. Numbers, turn to Numbers. Chapter 18, verse 20. Jehovah said to Aaron, "You are not to have any inheritance or portion in the land. I am your portion and inheritance among the people of Israel." So that second word for an inheritance, for redemption, inheritance, it deals with the Liphaim, Aaron's line. But we know Elimelech is not from Aaron's line. And then go down to verse 23. Only the Liphaim are to perform the service of the tent of meeting, and they will be responsible for whatever they do wrong. This is to be a permanent regulation through all your generations. They are to have no inheritance among the people of Israel. So this inheritance has to do with the priesthood. But that word is not used. The 5157 is not used in regards to the nearer kinsman. So it can't be a Levite. It can't be a Kohanim who's nearer than Boaz. And we look also at verse 6 again, where, he says, I can't put my own inheritance at risk. So some of the scholars are saying, well, he's married. There is no biblical way to prove, no scriptural biblical way to prove he was married. So let's go to the first reference, the law of first reference for this redemption. Go to Bereshit, Genesis 31, verse 14. Rachel and Leah answered him, "We no longer have any inheritance from our father's possessions." Okay? They no longer have any inheritance. So they're leaving their father's house. They say we no longer have inheritance. That's the same word that the nearer kinsman said. He said, I can't redeem it because I have... He didn't say, I can't redeem it because I have a wife already. He didn't say that. He just said, I can't redeem it. Now, some of the scholars are saying he had a wife and this would cause strife, and That's where we're getting this 51-59, because Rachel and Leah, and that's why Jehovah wrote, don't marry sisters, because there's going to be strife. And there were fighting between the children, as we know from Joseph. So I can see where they're going with it, but there's no proof scripturally for that. And you have to prove the word by the word. You can't put your opinion without scriptural proof. So, we come to the conclusion there at the bottom. There's no scriptural proof to who is the nearer Redeemer. I looked forever. And if anybody's got an idea, send me an email. Okay? Let's finish up this section. Verse 7. In the past, this is what was done in Israel to validate all transactions involving redemption. In exchange, a man took off his shoe and gave it to the other party. This was a form of attestation in Israel. Verse number 8. So the Redeemer said to Boaz, buy it for yourself. And he took off his shoe. So he's giving it over to Boaz. This fits what we were talking about earlier, Deuteronomy 25, verse 8 and 9. 8, 9, and 10. Where the brother's widow approached him, spit in his face, pulled off his sandal, spit in his face. So it can't be God that's nearer than Yeshua. Because you're not going to pull off God's sandal. Okay? So, the nearer kinsman tells Boaz, buy it for yourself. He gives the okay in front of the leaders, in front of the witnesses, in front of the judges. And he gives full consent to Boaz. And Boaz would make that decision to buy the land and to buy Ruth and to raise up a child in the dead husband's name. And hold your place there. Let's go to our Brit Hadashah bridge. Turn to Matthew 26, verse 15. Because Boaz paid the price. So our kinsman redeemer, there has to be a money exchange. Matthew 26, verse 15. And said, what are you willing to give me if I turn Yeshua over to you? They counted out 30 silver coins and gave them to Yehuda. For Yeshua to be our Redeemer, there had to be money exchanged. Because Boaz, back in Ruth, chapter 4, would buy the land and buy Ruth. Redemption always has a great cost. The Egyptians, all the firstborn died. And another reference that we have in the Tanakh and the Torah for money being exchanged for a redeemer is in Bereshit 39, verse 1. Joseph was brought down to Egypt, bought him from the Ishmaelim. Potiphar paid money for Joseph. Joseph would be the redeemer, so money has to be exchanged. So that's where we're going to stop there. Any questions or comments? If none, if you have questions or comments on the web, send me an email. Let us close on some prayer. Thank you, Lord, for allowing your Son, Yeshua, to come to be our kinsman redeemer. Thank you, Yeshua, for doing your job and doing it well. May we live up to what it cost you. Your name is Yeshua. Everybody said, Amen. Shalom, everybody.